All right, welcome everyone to our monthly Ayurveda and trauma healing workshop. It's really, really nice to be back here with you again. I had a lot of one-on-one calls, a handful of one-on-one calls from between now and our last session last month. And so it's been really great to connect with you one-on-one, to support you in applying the principles we've been teaching all year. Each month we do these workshops live and also have the recording on YouTube. So it's been really nice to hear how it's impacting your healing process and to help you hone in on more specific steps for your healing. So I'll give a quick overview of what we're going to do today, and then we'll dive right in. So each month that we are discussing in this series of Ayurveda and trauma healing as like the really big overall umbrella. But I do think that the pairing of these things are quite important because most people don't associate these two. If you know a little bit about Ayurveda, or if you've just been introduced to Ayurveda, you might think it's only about nutrition or gut healing. You might think of it only in the connection to yoga science and, these very high philosophies. Or you may have been to an Ayurvedic practitioner and, learned a little bit about your dosha or got introduced to it in yoga teacher training, that type of thing. And then the trauma healing world or the emotional healing world or the nervous system regulation world, I don't feel like Ayurveda is represented at all. But in my personal journey with healing from childhood trauma, and then also for the last over a decade helping clients one-on-one, also therapeutically transform and heal and their illnesses as well as the emotional component, there's a really strong connection. And there's a lot that Ayurveda can offer us in the realms of nervous system regulation, reducing the hypersensitivity in the nervous system, and healing challenging childhood imprints or past traumas at any time of life. So there's a lot to dive into. And so over the course of this year, each month, as we've been going through these workshops, we've been diving into different topics. And earlier this year, if you go back and look at any of the recordings on YouTube, the YouTube channel, you just look up Alicia Lynn Diaz and you'll find all of the recordings from with the dates from really last year of 2021 and then all year this year in 2022. And so we started going into systematically, what are the physical things to do to help heal the body? What are the emotional approaches? What are some of the spiritual connections that we need to make? And then what are some of the ways that we can relate internally in our body to hurt parts of ourselves that really need support? So these are all some of the topics that you'll find in this series in general. And then for today specifically, we're going to get into a little bit more of the language that is used in Ayurveda as well as yoga philosophy that comes from Sankhya philosophy, which are the three modes of nature. And they're also called the Maha Gunas. And in the email I sent out to you, they're called the three modes. So the three modes of healing trauma are also the three main qualities of life, the three energies that have created all of material existence. So today we're going to explore a little bit what these three Mahagunas are. They're called Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So we'll explain what this is in broad category, what it really means to your existence as a whole, because as you've probably heard me say a million times, this is a whole being approach. We're not just looking at trauma. We're not just focusing in on an illness. We're not just looking at quick fix for, a symptom. We like to really zoom out here and look at the context of you as an individual thriving in the context of the entire environment you live in, as well as, supporting generational impact of your ancestors in this body, the relationships that you have in life. So it's not just even mind body medicine. This isn't even just mind body spirit. We're talking about your whole being. So it's mind, body, spirit, emotions, relationships, um, ancestral connection, greater connection to life as a whole, and how you relate to all of these different aspects of you as a whole being. So today we will explore what these three modes are and how they create this whole being of you. And then we will also go into, well, what does that mean for our healing from trauma, for our, reprocessing of painful emotions and past events, and to be able to show up with more clarity, more feeling safe in the body, more clear mindedness to make decisions, to know what next step to take, to know how to relate to the world around you in a way that feels harmonious rather than dissonant, right? So we'll do, as always, each of these workshops, we like to start out with some breath work. These are guided practices that I like to guide you all in, that you can practice them on your own every day, because education is one thing, knowledge is one thing, but experience and consistency is what really makes the transformation. And that's what I'm most committed to in supporting you with, is like really embracing the practices to do every day. So it's so nice to hear that many of you are, in fact, in between sessions, are practicing daily, and then it's making a difference. And I'm so happy for that. And I encourage you to keep going. So let's start with our breath practices today. I have a little meditative reading, contemplation that I'll read, and then we'll transition into the topic, and then we'll bring that into the three modes of healing the mind and the therapeutic phases. By the way, last month we did talk about the 3-step kind of process of healing trauma, and these 3 phases that I'm talking about today are different. So even though they still happen to be 3, last month we talked about the therapeutic process that particularly I use in my practice one-on-one when I work with people in 6 to 12 month immersions. And they have overlap, but they're not exactly the same. So today we're going to really go into more of the language of that Ayurveda uses and some of the philosophy behind it, so that you can understand it and practically apply it into your healing as well. Sound good? Let's see who else joined in. Hi, Rebecca. Yeah, so nice. And Dawn and Catherine. Hi, Catherine. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so let's go into our practices today. If any questions come up throughout today's conversation workshop, type them in the chat. I may get to them at the end, or I may stop and check periodically, but while it's fresh, feel free to type it, and then I will pop in and look when I have a pause in my constant chattering. Okay. So first, just coming to a comfortable seat. You want to make sure your hips are your pelvis is a little bit tilted forward, which allows your belly to relax and kind of spill forward and even get like a little soft. So you can put your hands on your belly. So spine should be lifted and long. Pelvis slightly tipped forward. So that might mean coming to the edge of your seat, feet flat on the floor, or if you're comfortable in a cross-legged position, that's great too. Just rolling the shoulders up, back, and down a few times will help release any tension. And then pressing the shoulders down away from your ears. And then bringing the hands down to the belly. If at any point during any of these exercises, pranayama, gentle practices, they are very gentle, but if at any time you feel like you need to stop, please just listen to your body and take a break. But we're going to start with a belly breathing. So bringing your hands to your belly. Begin by exhaling. And as you exhale, feel your navel draw towards your spine. And then push all the air out. Naturally, your inhale will become fuller and deeper just by focusing on the exhale. So do a few breaths of just focusing on the exhale where your navel pulls towards the spine. And then the inhale, belly becomes soft and it expands without forcing. If this feels uncomfortable to you, or you find yourself taking a big breath and your belly moving in, you might find that you're a reverse breather. And if that's the case, outside of this workshop, do the practice I'm describing right now, laying on the floor, on your back with your knees bent. And you can practice. It'll be easier to do. So exhaling, navel towards spine. Inhale, full deep breath. Belly softens and expands. And through your hands, you can also send some loving to your belly. Remind it of its safety and let it feel held by you. Good. We'll transition into the deep 3-part breath. So you're going to distinctly sip air from belly, then the rib area, then the chest. And then you'll exhale opposite, chest, ribs, belly. So just like you're filling a pitcher of water from bottom to top and you empty it out from top to bottom, this is what you're going to do with the 3 areas of your lungs, getting in touch with these 3 spaces in your body and your breathing. So first exhale all the air out. Then inhale belly, sip into the ribs, middle, and sip into the chest, upper. Exhale upper, chest. Exhale ribs, middle. Exhale belly, lower. Inhale belly, ribs, chest. Exhale chest, ribs, belly. One more time. Inhale, sip belly, ribs, chest. Exhale chest, ribs, and belly. And now do it smoothly. Same thing though. Inhale belly, ribs, chest. Exhale chest, ribs, belly. Continue at your own pace, nice and smooth, and really starting to feel that the belly expand front, sides, and to the back. And then your ribs expanding all the way up finally to fill, overflowing at the chest. And then slowly relaxing it out, exhaling from chest, ribs, and belly. Again, feeling the expansion in all directions. Belly, ribs, chest, nice and smooth. Exhaling chest, ribs, belly, nice and slow and smooth at your own pace. Do one more without my guidance at your own pace. Okay, pause and just notice whatever you notice. Good. And the next breath will build on the foundation we just did. You'll do the deep 3-part breathing, nice and smooth and slow, except this time on the exhale, you're going to exhale with a humming sound. So we'll do 3 breaths together, but you can also go at your own pace if it's a little different than mine. And we'll take a space to notice after. So go ahead and just exhale all the air out. Take a full deep breath in, belly, ribs, and chest, and exhale with hum. Last one. And as you're humming, really feel soothed by the humming, or send the humming as a little lullaby of love to any part of you that needs a little extra attention and love today. Pause and notice. Good. And then our final breath today will be the mantra breath, Hari Om. And so there's 3 sounds. So same thing, building on the foundation, inhaling from belly, ribs, and chest, and then exhaling with the sounds ha, ri. It's a little roll of a tongue, so if you hear me singing it, it might sound like D-I, but it's R-I, and you can pronounce it either way. Hari or Hari, Hari, Om. And Om, really open your jaw when you chant the Om. So softening the jaw, start with Ah, and then move to Oo, and then the And this allows the energy of Hari Om to move full circulation in all your energetic channels, and kind of continue that intention of like, I can send a lullaby or a sound vibration, a song of healing to any parts of me that need it right now for whatever reason. We don't even have to think about it or know. It's just it's a subtle sense. So developing your subtle sense of what's needed in your system, whether it's conscious or unconscious, just use that intention as we chant and make the sound. So exhale all your air out first. Full deep breath in belly, ribs, and chest. And then exhale 3 times with Hari Om. Hari Hari pause and notice when you're done. Linam murni vyatsarvam bhairavadvena bhavayet tatsarvam bhairavakara tejas tattvam samavishet. Enter the space inside your head. See it as already infinite, extending forever in all directions. The spaciousness that you are is permeated by luminosity. Know this radiance as the soul of the world. Linam murni vyatsarvam bhairavadvena bhavayet tatsarvam bhairavakara tejas tattvam samavishet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. What a suiting poem for, wow. What a suiting poem for our topic of conversation today. So in order to talk about the three modes, we need to understand where these three modes come from and ultimately where we come from. Because the way that Ayurvedic psychology is different than modern psychology is that the cornerstone of it is spirituality, is this knowing that we're actually the eternal soul that has come into this physical form. We are the eternal soul, and that's the ultimate reality, is that we are an eternal soul that has temporarily put on this outfit, and we change outfits all the time, meaning we change bodies all the time. But there's an eternal part of us that is constant and unchanging. And it's the constant and unchanging eternal part of us that heals the limited, always fluctuating and changing material part of us. And the great opportunity that we have as souls that have taken a human birth, as souls that have put on a human outfit for this time around, is the opportunity to remember this truth and to remember this higher reality, or this eternal part of us that is unchanging. And that eternal part of us that's unchanging is wholeness itself, is pure conscious awareness. It is Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachite Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. It is the unchanging. We are an emanation. Each of our individual souls is an emanation from from the divine. So Purna, you heard in that prayer that I was just speaking, Purna, 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 it's wholeness, it's complete, it is whole unto itself, and it is an exact replica of the divine, in the same way that a flame is lit from another flame. Nothing is taken away from that flame, and the flame is exactly the same. Sure, fires may burn differently, but the fire itself is the same. And in the same way, our eternal selves, as an emanation of the divine, are have all the compassion, love, resourcefulness, all the faculties, all the higher perspective, all of it that the divine has. And so, as the keystone or cornerstone of Ayurvedic psychology, this is foundational because, therefore, our soul, our eternal selves, our divine nature, is the only part of us. It's not a part of us, it is the true us. It is the higher self, if you will. This is the aspect of us that heals the mind, that mends the traumas, that helps us remember the parts of us that have been dismembered, that have been fragmented. Because over all of the times, all of the millions of changing of these body suits, of these body outfits, there have been imprints and things, karmically, in past experiences, past lives. So we come into this life with yet another opportunity to mend and heal that which is reminiscent of a pain from a previous incarnation, even. And so the things that we've experienced in this life are reminiscent of those and are constantly being brought to our attention, because we can't run away from them. We can only move towards the divine, move towards the higher self, move towards more soul realization, self-realization, and as a result, mend and knit back together, remember those parts that have been fragmented, forgotten, and lost in the darkness of forgetfulness. So this is the foundation of Ayurvedic psychology and how it really transforms. Because without that piece, without that most vital foundation, if we're only focusing on the shadow work, the healing, the mending, the trauma, the reprocessing, or even the limitations of the nervous system regulation, we're still only working in the realm of the physical, constantly changing part of us that's limited, and it will be never ending in that quest, without the higher spiritual light guiding it. So, meaning, there are like infinite traumas that we've experienced in this life, let alone past lives. So there are infinite moments of disappointment, grief, terror, rage, pain. There are infinite moments of that, because this physical world, material world, is inherently limited because of its changing nature. So the only thing that can help us is to use a spiritual, bring the spiritual light into the healing, and to reconnect the parts of our mind and the parts of our being that have been hurt, fragmented, in pain, and to bring them back into wholeness through that which is unchanging and that which is whole. And so all of us, and any of you listening, can do that through any spiritual path that genuinely resonates and calls to you, or that feels most like home and that feels most safe to you. So Ayurveda isn't specific in that way of saying it's not this isn't actually a religious concept, although there are, some core beliefs, like in terms of, hey, there's a spiritual part of you that's unchanging and eternal, and that's the part that heals the mind. So where these three gunas, these three mahagunas come in, are through this foundational philosophy that is the the field from which Ayurvedic psychology grows from. And that philosophical system is called Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy. And so Sankhya philosophy, as the way that my teacher, Dr. Ladd, teaches it, is also can be translated to the journey of consciousness into matter. So it's literally how that soul of ours manifested into this physical form. Or if you zoom out, that's one microcosm of the macrocosm. As a whole, it's like how all of existence has come to be. So it's the philosophy of how all of existence has come to be, at least on the material planes, because there are all kinds of ancient scriptures that talk beyond the material planes. But for today, we're just talking about a little bit more practical for you. So Sankhya, Sang or Sam, you'll see it spelled S-A-M or S-A-N, but it's basically referring to this word in Sanskrit that is Sat. So Sam or Sun is the same as Sat, and Sat means truth, and Sat is the core root word. So Sat means truth, or this highest, greater reality that we were just speaking about, the spiritual realities. And in this understanding, reality means that which is unchanging. So that which is changing is considered to be unreal, and that which is unchanging is considered to be real in the sense of the absolute reality or the ultimate reality. So Sat helps us, is referring to this higher truth or just truth in and of itself. And then Kya means to realize. That root word means realization or to realize. So Sankhya philosophy is a systematic way of thinking and a map to realize the truth. And so all of Ayurveda as a holistic medical system is supposed to be aimed at, and in its essence, its true spiritual essence, is aimed at creating a field and the context of your body so that you can transcend the body and connect spiritually. Because when we're in illness and disease and constantly triggered and constantly in pain, it's hard to meditate. It's hard to have a higher, more subtle sensory perception because the pain brings us back into the body, right? And so Ayurveda is a whole medical system, but it's beyond a medical system because it's a spiritual medical system. So it's a medical system that says, okay, we're going to help the whole body rise up and resonate closer to the level of the soul, the place where none of the problems that we're having actually exist. They don't exist there. So we work with the whole body system, the physiology, the mind, the emotions, the pranic body, energy body, and the wisdom of the cells and the inner nature. And we help rise it all up so it's functioning really well. It has good energy, it sleeps well, it feels harmonious and pretty stable amidst the regular fluctuations of seasons and daily life. And from that place, we have the container that can allow for a higher soul realization or self-realization or truth realization. So that is actually the purpose of Ayurveda. And so anyone who's told you otherwise or has only given you introduction to like the little pieces myself included, because sometimes you need to speak to those little pieces, but just know that the pieces that you're learning are really a part of this bigger, vaster, really beautiful thing. So bringing it back to this Sankhya philosophy, this journey of consciousness into matter, this we can speak on for hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and months and years. So what I'm going to do is just share very briefly how these three Mahagunas, which is our main topic for today, how they come to be, and then what that means to you, and then what that means in the therapeutic process of, psychological, spiritual healing, emotional healing, trauma healing. So essentially, the Mahagunas are called Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And now you should have seen this in the email that I wrote. I'll also write it below this video as a recording. But Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. I typed it in the chat. And and these are the three Mahagunas. So Maha meaning the main, the great, the primary gunas or qualities of life. So everything in our material existence is created from these three Mahagunas. Everything in our existence, everything we know to be existing, is made up of these three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are born from the union of Purusha and Prakriti, which are the energies of masculine, feminine, Shiva Shakti, uniting and creating this principle of consciousness called Mahat. This principle of consciousness is the really wide, expansive consciousness. So consciousness becomes aware of itself, as Dr. Ladd would say. Consciousness becomes aware of itself, Purusha and Prakriti uniting. Consciousness becomes aware of itself, and then all of a sudden it's all pervading, Mahat. So when you hear of these really enlightened beings who can know everything about everything, they can zoom in and out of existence, zoom into someone's body thousands of miles away and heal them, or these like great yogis and great beings, or just see inside of experiences past, present, future, or the simultaneous now. They're be able to zoom their consciousness out of the localized experience and make it wider and then focus in somewhere else, because they've realized that Mahat principle. From Mahat comes your Buddhi, which we've talked about in previous workshops. Your Buddhi is the aspect of your intelligence. It's also your rational mind. It's also your ability to do discernment and to see things clearly. Your Buddhi is like the crystal, as I kind of sometimes refer to it as, which is the part of your antakarana, the inner workings of your mind and how you process information. But the Buddhi, when it's clear, it's able to reflect the essence of your true soul coming through. So again, if you've ever been with a great master, a yogic master, a self-realized or God-realized being, they have their buddhis are crystal clear. This is why Buddha is called a Buddha, because a Buddha's buddhi is crystal clear, and so their soul shines through, which is a glimpse of divinity, which is why you feel so peaceful and in awe in their presence. So as this journey of consciousness into matter continues, the non-localized consciousness starts to localize into buddhi and intelligence, and then it starts to localize even further into your individual sense of self. So it's like the border of like who I am, where I end, and where other begins. So this is called your ahamkara. This is your I am maker. We've talked about some of these terms in past workshops. And so I hope these are ringing a bell, but if they're new to you, that's okay too. I'm breezing through this anyway, just so that we can get to the practical piece for you. But I want to do my best to at least honor this lineage and where these things that I'm speaking to come from, even though I know I will fail fully at honoring them. I'm doing my best to share some insights with you. So anyhow, the non-localized mahat localizes and creates a border around it, which basically is like the border of your own being. So this is your aham kara. Kara means maker, aham means I am. Aham kara means the I am maker, meaning this is the part of you that identifies as a unique individual personality. Okay, so kind of like your ego. But there's no negative connotation here. Even the word ego doesn't have a negative connotation, because ego is not synonymous with egoic. So put that out of your mind and just come into the essence of the meaning of ahamkar. I have an ego, I have an ahamkar, I need to have a sense of self, because consciousness came into this body as a soul into this body to experience its unique self. So your personality is formed from that, and all your unique and beautiful quirks, likes and dislikes, and skill sets and inclinations and things that have been created that make you uniquely you. And so this is ahamkara. Now, in order to for ahamkara so there's a sense of self, but the sense of self needs to now engage with the world around it. And so what happens next, or what happens from there, is that's where the sattva, rajas, and tamas is born from. Sattva, rajas, and tamas are the three main energies that allow consciousness to become localized and to engage with the world around it through its antakarana, the faculties of the mind. So from sattva, rajas, and tamas, all aspects of your ability to engage with the world around you are born, as well as the things you are engaging with. Meaning all five elements, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, they all come from sattva, rajas, and tamas. Ether, air, fire, water, earth. Then also your five sense organs. So your ability to see, taste, touch, hear, and smell all come from sattva, rajas, and tamas. So that's sense organs incoming information, because you need to be able to perceive the world around you. So you're able to perceive the world around you through these organs and their faculties. So the organs are your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, but the faculties are seeing, tasting, touching, hearing, smelling. So all of that is so that you can perceive the world, right? Your ahamkar would not be able to engage with the world had sattva, rajas, and tamas not created your sense organs, the five elements which to perceive, and the five faculties that those organs do, right? And then the final thing, well, the final two things, is that sattva, rajas, and tamas give birth to your motor organs and their faculties. So your motor organs are energy going out. So your sense organs perceive everything coming in, everything you see, taste, touch, hear, smell. And then your motor organs help you actively engage. So it's speech, speaking, grasping, touching, walking, moving, as well as the ability to procreate, the ability to eliminate, to digest food. All of those are ways that you engage with the environment around you through your motor organs and their faculties. Okay, and then finally the mind. So all of these things, the mind is born out of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, because the mind, or the Antakarana really, is the part of you that processes the information that come in through the five sense faculties, and then it determines how you react in response through the motor action and motor actions. Okay, wow, so Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas is so important. It's the essence, and you've probably never heard these terms before, or if you have, they've been just very simple definitions. But now we're realizing, like, this whole journey of consciousness into matter, this whole journey of the divinity, it gets condensed and condensed and condensed all the way down to a localized experience of me, and then I'm able to engage with the world around me as a result of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and all these other elements we just talked about. So then, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas becomes the bridge between our higher consciousness and our lower nature. And higher and lower don't mean good or bad. They don't have positive, negative connotation. But what they're referring to is our higher nature just meaning our spiritual nature, and our lower nature meaning our material nature. So make sure if you hear me say that, there's no connotations. All right. Rebecca, thank you for that feedback. She says, you're doing great. I'm learning so much. Thank you. I'm so glad you're learning a lot, because especially with this topic, it's a tricky one because it's so rich and deep. And so I don't want to lose you, but I also want to offer you some of the richness, and it really is that. Okay, let me check my notes and make sure I don't go too off topic and see where are we going next. So when it comes to your mind, so let's go there. Okay, so when it comes to your mind, okay, so the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, these three Mahagunas, or these three modes of nature, are also the three qualities that your mind has. So because mind is born out of them, and all the ways that your mind can perceive and respond to the world around you, the mind has these three modes. Now, usually all three modes are happening simultaneously. So right now, your mind is sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. That's the adjective form. So right now, your mind has a part of it that's peaceful. It has a part of it that's excited or active, and it has a part of it that is unconscious. So sattva is referring to that peacefulness, that harmonious, neutral place. Sometimes it's called the mode of goodness, but it's a kind of equilibrium type of state. It's generally peaceful. And then rajas, or a rajasic mind, is rajas refers to mental activity. Right now, we're rajasic. I'm talking to you, you're listening, you're processing. It's a rajasic activity. There's an underlying foundation of sattva that we try to lay at the beginning of these classes, which is why every workshop I always do some breath work and a guided meditation, a little mantra, and a short, meditation poem. It's to create a harmonious energetic container of sattva, so that the learning that we engage in together isn't only rajasic and isn't only like me talking at you. It's like you become have a better ability to absorb information because you did a little practice that has your energy become sattvic. So that's sattva, rajas, mental activity, and then tamas is the most dense form of the energy. Sattva is the most subtle form of the energy. Rajas is kinetic energy or energy in motion. And then tamas is dormant energy. So, or potential energy, even, you can think of it as. So, tamas is anything that's unknown to us, that is buried, that we are ignorant to. So, this is sattva, rajas, tamas. So, our mind, right now, as we speak, you are experiencing all three simultaneously, right? There's a part of you that's like relaxed and chill and peaceful. There's a part of you that's active, and there are parts of you that you're completely unaware of that are reacting and responding to the things that I'm saying and that we're talking about. And it's different for each of you, and you're aware of some of it and you're unaware of some of it. So the mind is always in all three, and always all three are present because the mind is born from those. The body is born from those three. Now, in Ayurveda, the physical body is considered to be a crystallization of the mind. So anything that's in tamas, especially, becomes even more so crystallized into the form of the body. So when you think about when there's like a somatic, say, trauma or response in the reptilian brain, in the limbic system, in the unconscious reactions, all of that, they're all tamasic. It's the things that your body remembers, but your visual mind or your you might not be able to access consciously, right? So that's tamas. So now, knowing that your mind is always experiencing all three simultaneously, it's also, we also can look at that there's a predominant mode that you're usually experiencing. There's what we call manas prakriti and manas vikriti. Manas is essentially your mind. Prakriti and vikriti you may have heard of in other Ayurveda settings, or from me as well. But prakriti is like your baseline constitution, and your vikriti is anything that's currently out of balance. So manas prakriti means your base constitution of your mind when you took birth and came into this body, which is influenced from Ayurvedic psychology perspective. It is influenced by past life impressions. But you come into this life with a certain manas prakriti, and then at different stages in your life, so you have a baseline mental constitution that is more sattvic, a little more rajasic, or a little more tamasic. One of those predominantly. And then there's the manas vikriti. So vikriti means that which is currently out of balance. So you might have a general constitution of your mind and your general inclinations in life to have a certain type of mindfulness or, mental atmosphere that's typical for you. And then at different stages in your life, or at different chapters in your life, you might experience a different manas vikriti. So manas vikriti would mean what's in excess at any given moment. If there's a trauma, the manas vikriti, usually rajas and or tamas, goes skyrockets, and so then you have to work to get back to your baseline, kind of thing. So there are quizzes and assessments to try to determine your manas prakriti and vikriti. In general, it's useful because it helps you understand what you can, like, how to respond to your mind, or what you can do, what you have the power to do in your day-to-day life to make the mind more sattvic. So basically, the goal is, if there's a goal, is to support the mind to becoming more sattvic as its baseline. And rajas and tamas are usually indications that something is out of balance, out of whack. So again, there are supportive and unsupportive aspects of rajas. There are supportive and unsupportive aspects of tamas, and there are supportive and unsupportive aspects of sattva. So as I go into this next phase of our class today, and I will use rajas and tamas, and they will sound more negative, but they're not negative. I'm just speaking to the unsupportive aspects of them. So let me just build a little bit of a case just so you understand sattva, rajas, and tamas, supportive and unsupportive, a little bit more first. And then we'll talk about manas vikriti, what happens when one is really in excess, and then what to do to bring it back to sattva, and then the therapeutic phases. So rajas is movement. In excess, or the ways that rajas is unsupportive in your mind, mental body, and your emotions, is when it's hypervigilant. So you're experiencing excess rajas if you're feeling on edge, if you're actively in fear, if your body's in fear and you don't know why, if you have insomnia, if you have racing thoughts in your mind, if your mind is constantly stuck in mental loops, if you're having invasive memories, dreams, nightmares, invasive thoughts that come into your mind, if you're feeling hyper triggered by relationships, people around you that remind you of past feelings of fear, anger, unsafety for any reason or any other emotion on the list, it's experiencing, these are the unsupportive manifestations of rajas. Unsupportive manifestations of tamas are, because tamas is dense and dark, it is feelings of apathy, feelings of giving up, hopelessness, stuckness. There's most of you who are on this call probably aren't tamasic predominant, because you're actually seeking knowledge, wisdom, and a way to heal. When tamas is really predominant in the mind, it's apathy. It's not even interested in learning about this topic. It is usually self-destructive, and it perpetuates things like addictions or anything that would numb you away from healing, numb you out of the pain, and avoid facing the things that need to be faced in order to heal. So those are the, I guess you could say, unsupportive aspects of tamas. And sorry, I just knocked my desk and it probably made the video wobble. So, but there are also supportive aspects of rajas and tamas. So rajas, just in its pure essence, is engagement of the mind. So you're using rajas in a supportive way right now to learn, to think about questions that you want to ask me about, this topic. And you're using rajas right now you use rajas to communicate, you use rajas to teach, you use rajas to encourage other people who are on the healing path. You use rajas to think. So there's a healthy amount of rajas, which is just the movement of thoughts. But rajas can also be used to poke at tamas, to help get us out of that apathetic state. Rajas can be used as cheerleading and encouragement. When we or someone we love is feeling tamasic, hopeless and apathetic and numb and avoiding, we can use that rajas energy to get motivated. So rajas is motivation, and it is this energy of like, get up and go, let's do something about it. It can have a real can-do attitude, and it wants to move in the direction of you seeking your potential and you reaching your goals and you being positively inspired to move forward, right? So these are all the beautiful aspects of Rajas. And then there are positive, supportive aspects of Tamas, right? Tamas is also simply relaxation. Without the healthy amount of tamas at the right time of day, you won't be able to sleep at night. Tamas is what allows you to withdraw internally and just relax and sleep and rejuvenate. Tamas is also helping to safeguard whatever traumas might be stored, because it knows, or like that unconscious part of you knows, that it can't remember and feel all of the things from the past at once. It has to suppress them, it has to repress them, it has to fragment them off in a little package, it has to exile them away into your subconscious, because it knows you haven't yet had the faculty to process with all of that. So it is also helping titrate out little bits of what you're able to process through Rajas, and back to Sattva, which is full resolution, peacefulness, harmony, and equilibrium. So there's so much beauty in Tamas. We need to be able to shut down our mind and our thoughts. We need to be able to go to sleep. We need to be able to enter dark seasons of our life and relax. We need to be able to not face the things that are too hard to face. And we need to only process grief, tragedy, pain, these imprints at a pace that we can actually metabolize and assimilate, because all parts of you working together are trying to survive and keep moving forward. And you and only you will know when you feel like you have the strength, the resilience, the proper path, guidance, and safe space to metabolize and work through, with the proper tools and all of that, the things that might be tamasic or hidden and buried in nature. Now, of course, when something is buried in tamas for too long, it starts to create imbalances in the physiology and in the health. And that's when we see digestive disorders, eating imbalances, food sensitivities, all kinds of other reproductive issues, migraine headaches, fibromyalgia, you name it, all these types of complexes, any illnesses that last for 3 months or longer, some years, pain complexes and illnesses, they're usually because things have been stored up in tamas for so long that they haven't been processed. They do need a pathway out. And so that's what gets us to the therapeutic process. So those are the supportive and unsupportive aspects of Rajas and Tamas. There are supportive and unsupportive aspects of Sattva as well, but in general, Sattva is referring to the balance and the harmony of Rajas and Tamas in the mind. So it's proper application and proper use and proper activation of Rajas and Tamas at the right time. And I just want to go straight to the therapeutic process because it's just ripe from the conversation we just had. So you can write this on your paper. Tamas, from left to right on your paper. Tamas, make an arrow to Rajas. Rajas, make an arrow to Sattva. Sattva, make an arrow. So the therapeutic process and the way that these work together is actually, Rajas is a bridge from those buried, unconscious shadows of the deeper subconscious of Tamas. And it's a bridge to help create harmony and peacefulness and essentially freedom. Because once we are free of the things that have been trapped in our psyche and in our body, in our soma, then we experience sattva because we're free from it. So So Rajas becomes an important bridge. So the three phases, therapeutic phases of healing here are breaking up tamas. So you can write it as breaking up tamas. So the arrow that goes from tamas to rajas, this means breaking up tamas. And then from rajas to sattva, it's basically calming rajas. And then the sattva arrow to the open space at the end, that means that's purifying sattva or transcending sattva. We'll talk about that in a moment. But just for now, write this out on your paper so you have it. So it's breaking up tamas, then utilizing and calming rajas, and then purifying sattva. I'll speak to sattva briefly. So because I said transcending sattva, so basically sattva is the right use of rajas and tamas. So when there's tamas, and so basically like this, even though we are utilizing rajas to speak and to learn education, to give and receive information and wisdom, it's sattvic because it's the proper use of rajas. So I'm using rajas in the proper way to help break up some of the tamas in you, meaning there are things that you just learned today that are speaking to, that are starting to awaken unconscious patterns, pains, and it's starting to bring hope and motivation, right? All those positive, supportive aspects of rajas. And it's starting to break up tamas. It's starting to agitate the deeper system. It's starting to promote mental activity. It's just that the journey can't stop there. So that's tamas to rajas. But rajas to sattva means, so this is in essence, this is kind of sattvic because I'm speaking to a direct need that you have. And so it's rajasic, but it's also sattvic. But when we're doing like meditation practice and we're engaging, so like after your breath work, or you're feeling peaceful and harmonious and the mind isn't really chattering a lot, that's sattva. But sattva is very, very subtle. So, for example, if I, in this class, were to only do the breath work and the meditation, the poem meditation, that would be only offering you sattva. Would it offer the proper detailed tools to break up tamas? Would tamas be broken up? Eventually, over time, if you go to a 10-day meditation, silent meditation retreat like a Vipassana, certainly a lot of tamas comes to the surface. It's very, very purifying and cleansing for the mind. But generally speaking, sattva is too subtle to really get to the depths of tamas, of what's hidden, what's buried, and what's too scary to look at. It provides a very important foundation, but rajas is the bridge, but rajas isn't the end-all be-all. So these three are very important, meaning this is why in this session today we have sattva and rajas because I need to speak to all these things. I need to give you the tools. I need to not only give you the tools that feel sattvic in the moment, but I need to remind you and tell you why you need to do those tools every day, because I need to give you the motivation and to transmit some of that energy to you. And then you need to be able to understand and grasp why it is that we're doing and what all these sciences are, so that you can help clear out the stuff that has been stuck for years or decades of your life or lifetimes. Right? So we need to break up the tamas, but even better than the language of breaking up. I like the idea of ripening. Like, this is what works best in my practice, and we talked about this last month, is there's a ripening of what's in tamas. So when you provide an atmosphere of sattva and you use proper rajas, it helps soften tamas. So you don't have to break it up with a sledgehammer or a scalpel or a knife. It actually just softens tamas. You can even write that on your paper if you want. Soften tamas, ripen it, right? And then in phase 2 of rajas, that's what we do to actively process it, reprocess it. These are where all the tools of somatic work and IFS or internal family systems or EMDR, bilateral stimulating brain spotting, a lot of modern um, holistic therapeutic, psychotherapeutic practices are really shine because they are rajasic therapies. But rajasic therapies are the things that are missing in just out of the spiritual practice, because spiritual practice is sattvic. Yes, there are a lot of spiritual practices that are more rajasic, like more intense breath work and more intense sadhana. But you need to be working under the guidance of a guru, a teacher that really knows what they're doing and working with you individually to do that type of tapasya or like burning that up. And still, therapy or psychotherapeutic support, that rajasic aspect is needed to help reprocessing traumatic memories and things that come up in the body. But just know that those are rajasic. So when used alone, they're limited. And then tamasic, there's not really any therapies that are tamasic other than if someone is having a total, psychotic break, they actually need to be numbed with some type of medication to help them chill out and reset, but that ultimately they need to go through the 3 processes. So the therapeutic aspect is moving from tamas to rajas, and then moving from rajas to sattva, and then ultimately transcending sattva altogether, which is the 3rd phase. So the limitations of course, we all are aware that there's limitations in talk therapy alone, for example, just because it only accesses the conscious mind, which is a very small percentage of our mind. We need to really access all that's in tamas, all that's in the chitta in Ayurvedic language, or all that's in the subconscious mind, and that's stored in the soma. And so we need to use specific kinds of rajasic therapies that also have ideally a foundation in sattva so that everything's more smooth. But then ultimately, because we talked about this map of Sankhya philosophy, we want to utilize and embrace not Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas only as therapeutic phases, but actually we want to cultivate sattvic lifestyle as best as possible to create as much harmony, stability in the emotions, inner peacefulness, so that we can ripen the tamas. When the tamas comes to bloom, we can reprocess it in effective ways and then return to an even more and more harmonious, peaceful state. And then we need to utilize that peaceful state, because sattva actually means the word itself in Sanskrit translates to almost like the truth. It means almost like the truth. Remember that word sat as in Sankhya philosophy? Well, sattva is referring to it's almost like sat, the truth. So sattva is the closest we can get to our spiritual selves on the physical plane of material existence, of the lower nature. It's the most subtle, highest part of our lower nature. But then we need to do practices that help us continually soften tamas, break up the dullness, the ignorance, the inertia of the tamasic parts of us, ripen them, cleanse, purify, clear, reprocess them, and then end up in the peaceful state, and then build and purify and enhance and strengthen our sattvic living in all ways of our being so that we can transcend sattva. And that's the path of self-realization. I'm going to go to questions now. So that was just a big download, and we're getting close to our time today. So I hope this is supportive and useful. And I see a question that came through from Rebecca. Please, at this time, type in any other questions that you might have. I hope that this language of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and of the mind, and of the greater Sankhya philosophy, starts to help your mind kind of think bigger, think in a new way, in a way that is connected to really tried and true wisdom traditions, so that you can start to see and perceive your journey on the healing path in a new light, instill that hope, and also see it without some of the limitations of most of the things you're probably exposed to today in terms of like trauma healing. There's a lot of copycats that are teaching kind of trauma healing in the same limited views. And I mean, all respect to everyone who's teaching anything on trauma healing, because God knows we need more and more and more information and tools out there, and everyone's message is going to reach, in different ways. But my guess is, if you're here and if you've been following my work for a while, you're more interested in like yoga and Ayurveda. And these are just really ancient, wise traditions that see it in such a big whole being perspective that it helps us navigate when we're in those dark moments that feel really small and limited. It helps us navigate to something greater and be like, oh, this is just some tamas coming up. I'm using this rajasic tool, but ultimately I need to get to sattva and I need to transcend it. It's like that's the journey, and it's pretty conceptual, a little bit conceptual at this point. But I do assure you that in its practice, in its application, in your unique situation, it's very, very transformational. And I sent it in the email, but I sent you some inspiring stories from some of my past clients and students that have experienced transformations in their physical health as well as their emotional health and energy, and transcending trauma and spiritual awakening and all of that. So you can always go there to read some other stories and get some inspiration. And then if you ever want, if you want to go deeper in one-on-one work, we can also arrange that, where I offer trauma clearing consults, and we can just meet and explore and see what are your needs, what are your next steps, what's the journey look like specifically for you, and then whether that's working in my program or not, you will at least get a detailed, personalized protocol, for you and your situation. So I'll have that link below. I'll send it out with the recording. I'll have that link below this video on the recording on YouTube. And so you can always book that on my calendar. And maybe if I have it accessible, I can put it in the chat here for you as well. In the meantime, let me check for questions. So Rebecca said, so you say tamas will safeguard traumas because we couldn't process through rajas and sattva. Do they communicate? So yeah, I was saying one of the positive expressions of tamas is that it does store and allow for some time so that you can reprocess when you have the support or inner resourcefulness or perspective to process. So it's not like they are individual entities that communicate, although you can look at it that way. It's more of Tamas is a quality that you have. It's one of the qualities of energy. You can think of it more as energies that are being utilized by your higher self, or by, an organizer in your inner system. So it's more the organizer that is directing these three energies, more so than the energies communicating with each other and saying, you should do this or you should do that. It's more of like an energetic thing. So I hope that makes sense. Let me know if I can answer a clarifying question for you on that topic. And if we don't have any other questions today, we'll wrap up our prayers and sign off. And I just want to send you this. So here's my calendar. So if any of you want to understand how to apply this information in a more personalized way, you can click my calendar for an Ayurveda trauma clearing consult, and I'll help you decode it for yourself and help you leave with a plan. Again, if you're watching this as a recording, it'll be below the video. Okay, I don't see any more questions coming through, so maybe we will wrap up with our closing prayer. And our closing prayer is Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti. All right, dear friends, thank you all for your attentiveness and your energy and your interest in this topic. I hope that there were some valuable insights for you. Please go back and listen to the recording too to help it sink in further, because this is a vast and deep topic. And today was a little bit more philosophical and conceptual, but I still did my best to tie it into practical. And if you want more practical application, you can register for a session on my calendar there. And you can also rewatch any of the earlier trauma healing workshops from the series that we started in 2022. So there's a lot more practical and didactic, information around all. And then you can always email me with any questions. The email address is hello@alicialyndiaz.com. It's below this video and in your chat here live. And your questions I really welcome, because knowing what interests you or where there's open loops of not understanding will also help me inform these workshops and the topics and things that I write about and teach about. So, I'm so glad you watched Dr. Ladd's video, Dawn. That was such a beautiful download he gave around women's health. So yeah, on my YouTube channel, Dr. Ladd, if you look Dr. Ladd in women's health, I interviewed him, and during that interview, I had 5 questions written on a piece of paper that was in my hand, and I never had to ask him any of the questions. He read each one psychically, telepathically. So I just sat there in the video, in the whole video, and I was just like, oh my God, he's answering every single one. But that's how we were in class too. I never really needed to raise my hand and ask a question. He always just answered it in class, like a little while after I formulated it in my mind and like sent it into the ether. So amazing. Yeah, he's one of those beings that can connect with the Mahatma type of being. Um, yeah, so read any of his Dr. Vasant Lad's books. I'm glad that you feel inclined to read and study his work, Dawn. He's real deal, very beautiful. When I had my first mentor in India, an Ayurvedic doctor I apprenticed under, I said I really want to deepen my studies. Like, I will move to India. I'll do anything you say. That was my mood. And he said, "Oh, go back to your country, because the purest lineage holder of Ayurveda is in the US now." And he's the one that really held the spiritual essence. So that's why I studied with Dr. Ladd. And Dr. Svoboda, I've taken class with as well. And Dr. Juilliard's a great colleague and wonderful teacher. So I'm glad that Dawn's just writing some of her experiences here with other teachers, and they're all excellent. You are definitely connected in with some great Ayurvedic teachers and scholars, and Dr. Claudia Welch I will add to your list as well. Look up her work, especially in women's health. She's written a great book on women's health and balance your hormones, balance your life. It's called. She's written other books too, but she's really wonderful. Even Dr. Svoboda, who is a male-bodied person, he wrote a beautiful book on Ayurveda for women. It's a small book, very poetic, very honoring, and very enlightening. Also a very sweet one. Anyway, I do a lot with women's health, so I love these teachers and resources. All right, loves, let's just sing our closing prayers. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Hi, Nicole. Happy to see that you are here. And Catherine, I'm so happy to see you too. I saw your email and I will respond. I just got it late and before this class, so thank you for that. All right, let's chant our prayer, sending out all the love and blessings to everyone in the world, in the universe, and beyond. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. All my love and respects to each of you, and may your healing journey continue to unfold with grace and safety and support. Love you all. See you next month for the last session of the year. My goodness. Can't believe it's already November. Hope you're enjoying this beautiful, colorful season. We're still harvesting pumpkins and tomatoes on our little farm here. So it's getting cold though, but it's so sweet. So I hope you're enjoying this season, whatever season you're finding yourself in when you're watching this. Okay, lots of love. Om Shanti.